the newborn king, they said. Go this way, go that way, go left, go right, go up, go down, then turn around, said Befana. Befana did not want them to get to the newborn king very quickly. Befana had a plan. Befana wanted to bring that baby gifts of her own. Befana wanted to make that baby give gifts back to her. One hand washes the other, she thought. You give, you get back, she thought. Even a little baby king could give Befana lots and lots of gifts, she thought. He's a baby, but he's a king, she thought. Those three kings don't need any gifts, she thought. Let them all take the crowns off their heads, she thought. So when the three kings set off on all the wrong roads, Befana grabbed a big, big bag of gifts out of her basement, out of her attic, out of the shed by her garden door. She jumped on her magic broom. She flew up into the starry night. But God saw her dark and tricky heart. And God pulled a trick on her, because God knew it served her right. No one can find the baby Jesus without a good, true heart, God said. No tricky hearts allowed. And then God said, we will remember the night when the three kings really did find the baby Jesus. We will call it the Feast of the Three Kings, Epiphany. On the night before the feast, God said, Befana can fly through the night looking for the baby Jesus. She can fly every year for all the rest of time, and let her ask every sleeping boy and every sleeping girl, are you the baby Jesus? Every sleeping boy and girl. And then Grazia gave her little brother a warning. When La Befana comes to visit, don't wake up. Befana is a tricky witch, but she's not very smart. So if you don't wake up and you don't tell her who you really, really are, she always leaves a gift. She leaves a gift just to see whether she can get rich. That's the story that Grazia told her little brother. Grazia was 7 years old. And then little Grazia got on that big ship with her mom and her baby brother. But she did not forget her stories. Even after she got to America, even after people started calling her Grace, Gracie, Grace. And then she grew up and had 2 girls of her own. And then those 2 girls grew up and had kids of their own. And then one day, when I asked her about the time before she was called Grace, I asked her, Mama Gay, Grandma Grace, do you remember any stories from long ago, far away, from somewhere in the mountains of Italy? She had gotten very old. Her hair was very white. Her voice had gotten very weak. And that was when she told me about Befana. She told me about what La Befana did on the night before the 3 kings found the baby Jesus. I don't think that anybody else was listening. Okay, these are based on exchanges, and this is one of the real exchanges that came back to me. via my app. Okay. Larry Baldacci wrote me this. Michael, I love this story and the recounting of La Befana. I knew some of the legend, but not all of it. Thanks for filling in the missing links. Ray, Larry's husband, Ray and I have a tiny wooden ornament of La Befana that my mother had. She gave it to us. It sits in a place of honor near our Christmas tree. Buon Natale, Mike. See you in the new year. Larry. And then another friend, a friend from St. Giles by the name of Mary, wrote, "What a wonderful story, Mike. Thanks for sharing it." This is my reply. I think I mentioned in another story that my father had evening hours at his office in the 3-flat at 1629 North Central Avenue, a few doors up from North Avenue in Chicago. His patients were mostly lower middle and working class people, mostly either the children of immigrants or the immigrants themselves, mostly from Southern and Eastern Europe. People who lived in Austin in the 1950s were proud that they had moved up a rung or two on the social ladder from more desperate areas of the city. Even after Austin became part of the West Side ghetto, the housing stock itself was sturdier and more stable looking than what people had left behind when they could. My father's evening hours fit the possibilities of people who worked in shops and factories, and few of them looked down on him. I was amazed at my father's wake to hear patient after patient tell me that my father was extraordinary, a humanitarian, a genius. Growing up in upper middle class Oak Park, in a predominantly lace-curtain Irish Catholic parish, I had never had that impression. Those evening office hours meant that dinner had to be on the kitchen table, piping hot, with the entire family, all 6 kids, Mama Gay, my grandmother, Gags, and my mother, all arrayed around the table, when my father appeared at the kitchen door, 5:30 p.m., and not a moment later. If it had not been for my father, none of the rest of us would have been there in the glory of Oak Park. My father was a remarkably successful student, who began life on Taylor Street, up a couple doors on Miller Street, actually, from Taylor Street, when it was considered a dangerous area. He was a remarkably successful breadwinner. We all knew it. We all knew that we depended on him. Keeping a tight schedule might be second nature to lots of people of lots of different backgrounds, but you have to remember that it took a world historical tyrant, Benito Mussolini, to make the trains run on time when he was in charge of Italy. And you need to think of Fellini's heroines, people in real life like Anna Magnani or Giulietta Mazzina, to remember that Italian women, like Italians in general, are not often simple doormats. I can't say that the kitchen at 1201 North Linden Avenue was never the scene of high drama, but I will remind you that pasta never cooks in water that does not boil. Can't you kids stop throwing around the cushions in the front row? Can't there be just one room in this house where everything always looks nice? And the covers in the bedrooms looked all smooth and nice just a few hours ago. Why do you kids have to go jumping on the beds? Often enough, I would observe Mama Gay, my grandmother, raising her shoulders in a theatrical Italian shrug, saying to no one in particular, "Someday they will miss me." She was in her 50s at that time, but she said it often enough in the decades that followed, often enough that I will never forget it. At the age of 75 myself these days, I often think of her frustration and her kindness. How totally sincere and totally contrary to the mind of La Befana the life that she shared with us really was. And despite my many years of Catholic education and Catholic this and that, I can't really say I put much credence in the stories of a life beyond death, where we all meet again, transformed, perfected,